Welcome to the Startup Grind.
So it's a tradition in Startup Grind worldwide. When we ask the speaker to come, we all stand up and we clap our hands and welcome in.
Orna, thank you for being with us tonight. I want to start with just some key facts about Orna if you don't know her work. So first of all, Orna with the research and work contributed to how we transfer data over the network. She has co-founded Ornet Data, which was actually acquired. This was the first time that Siemens, a European company, bought an Israeli company.
That's cool.
She was the first woman to have held the position of chief scientist in Israel.
And unfortunately, the only one.
Currently, we're hoping this to change.
Of course.
Yeah. And she was a venture partner at Gemini Funds, right, in Israel. And she contributed to PrimeSense, actually, that was acquired recently by Apple. And she has been actively contributing to the collaborations between Israel and Australia and Israel and the US, right, with the Israel and Australia, the Chamber of Commerce, and with BIRD.
Previously, when I was chief scientist in action.
All right, so we're gonna start this time with a speed round. Are you ready for this? We're gonna start with a few questions just to get to know Orna. So what item do you own that you would never sell?
My children, I would never sell.
It's not an item you own.
I own them. I made them.
What is your most unusual skill?
I don't think I have any unusual skills. Come on. You're asking me questions. The first question is a material question. That's not something that I'm good at. I'm not very good at materialism. If you want to know what I will die from, is the only thing I'll die from is curiosity. That's something I can give you.
All right.
But I don't know about anything that I possess that I will not give.
All right. What is more important, strength, speed, or stamina?
I think that what is more important is the ability to learn and to be curious. So I don't think that, I think stamina probably is the closest to that.
All right. Which historical figure do you admire most?
I think that it's anywhere between Einstein and Churchill.
What is the best compliment you could give to others?
Wow. I think that self-fulfillment is good health, and self-fulfillment is what I would wish them.
But what is the best compliment that you would give?
A compliment, okay. That's a... I think that they're interesting and positive.
And what is the best compliment someone could give you?
Same.
All right. Who do you think does a good job?
In what regard?
You pick anything.
Who does a good job? My mom does a very good job.
When was the last time you tried something new? And what was it?
Probably today.
Oh?
Yeah.
Can I ask what?
It's related to something professional that looked to me like a good twist, and I tried it.
All right. where is the most interesting place you've been in the world?
I think the most interesting place in the world that I've been to is Jerusalem.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? What makes it interesting to you?
19 layers of archaeology.
All right.
Very high tension among religions and great collections of archaeology and culture.
All right.
As well as multitude bits of religions, all of them.
Yeah.
Probably the most concentrated place on earth.
From where I've been, I agree. If you could have the attribute of any animal, what would it be?
I think that my daughter's one of my daughter's dogs is a good one. Sense of smell and direction, excellent.
Okay. Is it okay now? All right. Okay, so just thank you so much. Thank you. Like the last event, so if anyone would like to ask Orna a question, I'm gonna check out our Facebook page. If you haven't liked it yet, please do right now. And at the end of the interview, I'm gonna check it up and see if you have any questions. I'm gonna ask Orna from here. So Orna, could you tell us about your first entrepreneurial experience? Can you take us back a little?
Experiences I won't talk, but I'll talk about Ornet.
All right.
And this was a great time of data communication and many boutiques of technology. And the use of data communication was exploding pretty much. And Israel was at that time about 5% of the world market.
What year was that, before you go?
We're talking late 80s, actually from, yeah, it's from second half of the 80s.
Right.
This is after the deployment of first internet and the expansion of the microcomputers and the ownership of networked computers and the ability to actually do lots of computations on multiple microcomputers. So I think that at that period of time, first of all, networking is fascinating and communication protocols is fascinating. But this was when companies were growing the number of interconnected computers very, very fast. And the ability to build interconnectivity was growing fast. And the company that I was in started...
You founded it, right? You were
No, it's before that. The company that I was in was missing the boat because they wanted to obtain first $10 for every dollar invested in research and development, and they were not sticking with where the market was and were using technologies that were fairly expensive technologies relative to the commodity that was coming into market. So eventually a group left, and I was the first one to leave. I also went to look for the initial funding. It was before venture capital in Israel. So I consulted at Intel, and I was managing a project at Elbit in the interim, and we came with something that was about 50-fold the speed of internet at that time. That was 10 megabit per second, and giving each station connected a dedicated line, and scalable, and no meaningful delay. And by the time that we finished that project, happened the same thing that happened in many generations of technology, that the market went from technology companies to actually solutions companies. But but we actually caught the wave of having the pleasure of really having for a certain time the fastest product on the block, and this was something that it wasn't only myself, but I was among the first people who saw that this is the direction going for the speed. Then the direction of the solution was already too big on the Israeli companies because we were not so service oriented. But that was really the most significant initiative then. But after that, it was already coming again and again because it was easy to reinvent myself and reinvent technologies, and it was fun.
These were years. I'm pretty sure that you were probably among the few women, or maybe even the only one. I'm almost tempted to say, because this is technology. This is like networking. I haven't even now. I haven't come across women that are dealing with networking. So how was that?
First of all, it doesn't matter, because if you're interested in what you're doing, then you can do it. It doesn't. The gender doesn't matter. What matters? No. It's for anyone, because it's not. Nothing is written about the fact that you can or you cannot do something. It's your own feeling about what you can do. There are societal issues that are blocking you later. Because when you come into large companies or when you come into government, the people, when they select you, they compare with people who had those positions before, and they're conservative. So they don't change the gender. They will think about what was bad in the previous person who held the position, but they will stay within a very similar framework. So I think the key issue is particularly for women, and that's my advice is not to pay attention to the feedback from people whom you wouldn't want them for your mentors, because they are conservative. They lock themselves in concepts that are not promoting anything that you're doing. So my view, you know, it is unpleasant at the beginning. You think about it, but then you think about, you know, who are they to tell me? And you just go and you get accustomed to the fact that you do what you intend to do and not what other people expect you to do.
Was it ever an issue, even when you go and seek the funding, that a woman is doing this?
I think, you know, sometimes it's an advantage, because if some people, you know, we talked about curiosity. When some people are curious and are exploratory and get their answers and are, let's say, even a bit surprised, then it's even for the better. So I'm sure that our people don't like always to change trends, but that's all.
All right. I remember when we were talking the first time I met you, you were saying, okay, Orna was bought by Siemens, right? Mm-hmm. And I asked you at the time, was it hard to leave your baby because you left the company after it was acquired? And then you said no. There's a time and everything. There's a time. So I wanted to see your viewpoint. To me, it was very clear.
It was very clear that the market is changing, and it was a point in time that the technology still counted for a company that had channels, sales channels. Mm-hmm. But in a short time later, you could not compete against companies like, say, Cisco, whose budget for deployment marketing of a similar product would be about 4 times. Just the marketing initial budget for launching would be 4 times what was invested in the company altogether. So one needs to know when their inventions are disruptive enough that they can have such a growth and a margin and profit that you can stick to it, and when the invention is great, and the greatest appreciation that you can have for it is that somebody is interested to acquire it. Of
And
course,
then
it would
spending
be a much, you prefer to have something that is sustainable. And I hope that the activities in Be'er Sheva will be, but that's.
You want to tell us a little bit about the activity in Be'er Sheva?
Be'er Sheva is a fun thing because.
I'm not sure that everybody here are
I'll
aware of it.
tell everybody what's happening in Be'er Sheva. Be'er Sheva is sitting in the middle of Israel, literally.
Technically, yes.
If you take the map and fold it into two, this is in the center. It's you don't believe me?
No, I'm
Try
pretty sure
it.
it's true.
Try it. Take a map, fold it into two. Tell me you can. Everybody sends you an email, and you pass me all the emails if somebody found it otherwise. And it is the capital of 60% of the state of Israel. And do you want to guess what percentage of the population lives in the Negev?
I don't think that I can, but it's probably very low.
Less than 10. Very good.
Really?
Very good. Yeah, it's less than 10. So I think that Ben Gurion tried the leadership exercise that he'll go to the Negev and people will follow him. It didn't happen. Braverman took a university that was in pretty much shacks with about 5,000 students who were either stuck in the Negev or elsewhere. Otherwise, that is, and four-folded it, and built really an amazing campus. We brought some amazing researchers into it, and there was a city with a few bases around it, and a university. And the city was meaningless, but the university was meaningful.
Yeah.
And you couldn't find really significant employment in Be'er Sheva. There were a few companies in Omer. And just before I came to EMC, some of my colleagues later became my colleagues, decided to look for an alternative place where they have advantage with human resources. And they picked up on Be'er Sheva, but and they started exploring with the government about potential incentives and such. Nothing was signed, and then I came, and I had this fetish about Be'er Sheva, and in general about the periphery, because Ornet was also established in Carmiel. And I had the idea that this is a very important exercise, and from economical point of view, anyone who works in Israel in high tech knows that one of the biggest problems that we have is the exchange rate. The shekel is too strong to really be competitive in more generic terms. It's you need to be competitive when you stand on your toes and you stretch your fingers up to the sky, because you need to pray a lot in order to continue and be competitive. So what would make the shekel a little bit more balanced if the state is making a major investment in a new geography and is addressing a new population for employment. And so we ran a questionnaire at the university, how many people would have liked to stay in the Negev. 40% say that they would like to stay in the Negev.
Really? Wow, I'm so surprised.
20% were floating votes.
Okay.
And 40 additional percent say the day they finish the exams, they're on their way north.
Okay.
That actually when they come out of the exam, the truck taking their luggage and goods is already waiting in front of their apartment.
Did you run this question only in the science departments, or is it like the entire campus?
We did it in engineering and science. Right. So basically, it was clear that if we come there, even if we give up on the 40% that want to go elsewhere, if we take the 10 top percentile of the rest of the 60, we can have a pretty good team.
That's amazing. Wow.
Now, unlike the center, you cannot hire people with expertise because people with expertise are not in the south. But if you take very good people from the top 10 percentile and you train them well, you actually can get some pretty good results. So the hiring is totally different than in the center. And we hired a very strong HR who now she is actually the site leader. She became the general manager of the site. And
how many people are there now working?
100.
100.
And we're not yet 3 years on the ground there.
Wow.
And the satisfaction level of the business units at EMC globally from the people there is higher than elsewhere.
Wow.
Because it is motivation and talent plus attention gets you something else. Now, the real thing that happened in the interim, there are several things that take in this country forever, but probably not only in this country, but we care about Israel. So for 15 years, people were talking about building a high-tech park across from the university, and left the area between the university and what is called the Bet HaLochem free to build this park and something else. So nothing happened because nobody committed to place themselves there. So we committed. You have a sign on the neck from the sword that was on my neck. And anyhow, we committed, including financial commitment, to actually take a space for 150 employees. And this started the building. Initially, it was a very incompetent company from multiple countries that had no idea of how to deal with Israeli culture, not to talk about Bedouin employees, and nothing happened. And then came an Israeli company, real estate company, took over, I think 51% of the company, but really the full action. And the work started, of course, with Chinese builders. And just with, from the time that we committed, with a delay of a year and a bit, close to a year and a half, we had a new building, and soon will be there for 1 year. And this was the first building in the park. By now, they're building the second building because the first building is full. Not by us only, because it's full with about 650 employees. But it's, I think something says here in the corridor, don't fear following the crowd, and something else about don't fear leading the crowd, that Churchill said. So I think it's an interesting issue, but I give it, the real pioneers there are the university.
You have employment and the ability to be hired in the South for top technology, right? This is what you were awarded with the Yakirat Negev award, right?
Yeah, Yakirat Negev is because I'm sweet, but and Yakir in Hebrew is sweet. But that's
wow.
But that's not only for that. But the fetish that I had relates to the fact that there are lots of blue-collar people in the Negev who come out of the technology support of the Air Force bases and the armored corps. And everybody says in the country that there are no technicians, and there are plenty of technicians who live in the South, about 2,000 of them, that could very well be used in ISCAR-like factories, and just there is no no one who builds this kind of factory, and unfortunately I'm a computer scientist, so I cannot build the heavy metal and composite material manufacturing, but I wish somebody will do that.
Well, I hope so too. If you're talking about EMC already, so now you're leading, first of all, you're corporate vice president for growth and innovation, EMC Center of Excellence.
The Centers of Excellence in EMEA in the United States, yes.
So what are you looking to accomplish with your position here?
In Israel?
Worldwide.
It's a very interesting thing that is very difficult for me to explain elsewhere, but I think you may understand it. And the key issue is that Israel is a great test bed. If you have an idea and you walk out and you go down and you lift the phone and you talk with a couple of people and you get agreement to do something, then even though tomorrow is Friday, you can start.
That's true.
And by next Saturday, you can have a prototype.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a really important new idea and it gives an edge, then you can probably build a company. And you can deliver much faster than anywhere else. So exploring new ideas, adapting new ideas, this is a great place to start with. Now, for a global company to find out how to scale this and collaborate globally, it's a great exercise. So I shouldn't really lead towards just starting in Israel. There are many opportunities in other countries, but I find it that everything that I wanted to accelerate, at the end of the day, I created collaborations with Israeli teams that ended up resulting in what was intended. However, wisdom is not only in Israel. There are some areas that we don't have the same kind of expertise. And by the way? What we don't have, or we are improving a lot in mobile and social, but you must admit that the biggest successes like Facebook and Apple are not in Israel.
I agree.
And even though very talented people like Dov Moran try to get into the mobile area, and he's truly talented, they did not manage to break the same kind of glass ceiling that companies like Facebook and Google and Apple did. And the valuations that they have, and the economy that they create, and the change of, let's call it social physics trends altogether. So we're not there. We cannot move this kind of things as of yet. I'm not sure why, because there is nothing that is binding them to the location, because they're more internety and mobile than anything before, but we're not there. So building infrastructure, building IT systems, building interconnectivity, and using analytics, we're very strong at that.
It sounds like you believe a lot more in our technology skills rather than the
it's technologies and products.
segment.
It's technology and products. It's getting there to solutions, but it is not in the mass market as you could get. And so I'm not trying to develop another Facebook, nor am I trying to get to do Google, even though we're very good in search. But I'm trying to build infrastructure which is more conservative than Google or Facebook, but is needed and used by both.
EMC Israel site is actually built out of acquisitions. So what companies are you looking for to acquire or to merge into EMC in Israel?
So the latest acquisitions in Israel were in the storage. One was Extreme.io, which is a flash array, and I think we can proudly say that it's the company that sold the most flash arrays in the world, and means via EMC after the acquisition of EMC, because they weren't selling very much. They had a few locations that their systems were tested, but really they started selling as EMC, and that segment sells the most in the world today. The other company is already very interesting in terms of movement, transformation that is occurring in IT with all the cloud, big data, mobile and social, and this is a company called Scale.io. And Scale.io is actually reusing the resources, storage resources from servers, and now is creating a pool of storage. So it is coming close to the virtualization and software-defined data centers, and is very good. I would expect more acquisitions in cybersecurity eventually, because I think Israel has a lot to offer in that regard. Israel, RSA Israel is based on Sayota, which is a company that was acquired here in end of 2005 by RSA, and then RSA was acquired by EMC. So this is an important component of the Center of Excellence that we have here. But I believe that more will come eventually.
Is this the same type of companies that EMC Ventures is investing in?
EMC Ventures is not publishing its investments, but I think that most of the acquisitions that were made in Israel, the company was invested in, but there were some acquisitions and public offering globally of companies that EMC was invested in and made very nice returns from Israeli investment. So
but
there is
the same type of companies like cybersecurity and data and
various,
yeah.
and the person who runs the ventures, the new business in Israel, Gil Goren, is definitely, if he would have been a venture capitalist, he would have been on the Midas list.
Yeah. So where do you think this industry of big data is going to? I mean, what kind of products do you think we're going to see in the next few years?
So one thing is that big data, which was a lot about business intelligence in the past, today is a lot about predictive analytics, namely that you're trying to prevent occasions rather than or to prepare for occasions rather than just understand the past. And I'll give you an example of something that I find it very interesting. With the confluence of technologies, as I mentioned, cloud, big data, social, mobile, and the use of very large storage and compute in order to reduce the cost of, let's say, genomic mapping, then the combination between the personal medical records and the genomic mapping can lead you into personalized medicine, can lead you into a more effective drug development, can lead you into understanding which treatments will work on which patient, and be much more focused on the type of treatments that you give, and hence on one hand save lots of costs in inefficient treatments, and on the other hand save more lives. So you can actually see some types of usage of big data analytics, predictive predictive tools in many disciplines. But I think health is one of the more exciting ones. Security is another one.
Do you think that we're going to have data sharing between companies that are aggregating data analytics?
Of course, because even in Israel, the Israeli SEC, the antitrust, allowed the banks to share intelligence information, because the more data you have, the higher efficiency of your analysis is. And there is no reason in the world why a cyber attack on one bank needs to be replicated on another bank independently because there is no sharing of data. On the contrary, you want to share the data for the two reasons. One is to avoid replications of threats, and the other one in order to increase the reliability of identification of malware without disruption of normal course of business. So I think this is the sharing of data is not only there. I think that still the regulator will not give a lot of the genomic data to cross boundaries in a regular form because of privacy issues and such, but it will give a lot of information for research to be done via the cloud and in a distributed fashion to actually get into identification of rare diseases and such. And basically, you know, one of the things that in China they're interested in the health system to look at big data is really to prevent the expansion of diseases, like preventing the SARS or the different types of flu from being distributed.
Can I ask you, you were also, as I said, chief scientist, and you were a venture partner at Gemini. You were working closely with PrimeSense, and I wanted to ask if you have any advices to give our audience, which some of them are first-time entrepreneurs, from your experience.
I think that there are no cooked advices. Maybe actually, you know, I'll have two. One of them is that the lawyers work for you and you don't work for the lawyers.
Okay.
So don't expect the lawyers to know what you need to know business-wise, because they're lawyers and they don't know your market. So you need to tell what you think is right, and you need to stick to it.
Okay.
And
that, guys, girls, this time.
The other one is related to funding, and I believe that, you know, there are always corrections that need to be done for funding mechanisms, and the relationship between management fees in venture capital relative to the length of the time that until companies mature to exit or to go public, means to be sold or to go public. You need still to look at people, at investors, and see how successful they were with previously with companies of the same level of disruption as your company, because the game that the investors need to play is about supporting the companies. Not too many of them really have the connections in the market to support the companies. Some have very significant connections, like the successful sale of Waze depended a lot on one of their investors who could really call any of the social media companies and tell them, hey, you should look at this company.
Okay, good advice. Ending on a more personal level, what is something that you have yet to fulfill, something that you still want to accomplish?
I want the state of Israel to actually perform the planning and the execution of move of the technology units into the Negev, and build the educational system, the health system, the transportation system. I didn't finish this idea before because with the natural gas that was found in the sea, and with the strong shekel, if we don't make an investment in a new geography and attract new population into productive jobs and industries, then we're going to run out of steam very, very soon. The whole culture of building innovative small companies and selling them soon means the intellectual property and the spillover effect, which is how it affects the employment, how it affects the levels of services, the number of people who work with, in high tech, like look at Intel and what happened to Kiryat Gat as a consequence of Fabs 18 and 28 in Kiryat Gat. Even though Intel is a multinational corporation, the fact that it has both design and manufacturing in Israel, it is in fact impacting about 20% of the export of the high tech from Israel. So I think that we need to create a new economy in a new location based on knowledge, new population, creating a completely different situation. I want to come back to one person that I really have a great appreciation for, and that's Itzik Turgeman, who was an immigrant from Morocco. Originally, his family was in Dimona. Then the rest of the family was sent close to Kiryat Shmona, and they moved to Hadera. And this guy was in Atuda, and then served in intelligence. He ended up as a colonel. He was the expert in optics in the relevant units. And he was, during the bubble burst, everybody talked about how to keep people from the Atuda in the service, and he went and started collecting kids initially from Dimona. Collected the first time 23 kids. That was about 14 years ago. Program built was Atidim, and today 34% of the Atuda is coming from the periphery. So this kind of transformation, we're talking of thousands of people. This kind of transformation is something that I would like to see, because it requires a lot of innovation, a lot of stamina, as you asked me about it before, and persistence and perseverance. And that's something that I would like to see.
Well, that's a dream worth fulfilling. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Let me see if there are any questions on our, let me see, just what does EMC do to help and engage with Israeli startups?
So we do two things. One thing is, as I said, the trivial of investments and mergers and acquisitions, but that's definitely in the interest of the company. We're also involved and invested in something that is for the benefit of startups. It's a program called Mass Challenge, where we select every year a number of startups, small number of startups, after a very professional selection with some of the top leaders in the Israeli different technology disciplines, and send them for 4 months to mentoring and exposing them to investors and strategic alliances
Here in Israel?
in Massachusetts. So because we're Massachusetts based, by the way, I was the external fund that was invested in me eventually when the venture capital industry was established was also from the Boston area. So this is Massachusetts based and it's quite nice.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me just see. Shai Memo, did we answer your question? He asked, what is the most pressing technology problem that needs to be solved? Where is Shai? All right. Did we answer your question, or do you? All right. So, pressing technology problem that needs to be solved. You mean globally or here in Israel? Globally. All right.
I think the hottest topic is data science and predictive analytics. And I think that the number of areas that you can promote society, health, a variety of issues, security, whatnot. I think data science and predictive analytics is the hottest for me.
All right. Well, Orna, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, even investigating on you, and as I like to call you, the first lady of the Israeli startup or high-tech industry. All right. So it's been a pleasure. I think that one more thing.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Question. I think the work that we've done in the Negev, a lot about the Galilee.
Let me repeat the question just so it's heard on the recording. So we asked, what about Galilee and Golan, which is the north of the country of Israel? Is that some area that we want to also promote?
So first of all, I think I said periphery, and I said that the first company that I was a co-founder of was established in Carmiel. I think that Carmiel, the Galilee had a great initiative with the Mitzpim about 30 years ago, but there is not enough employment in the Galilee. I think that it was a good idea to establish the medical school in Tzfat. But it's a very small effort. Still, I think that the Galilee is closer to the Haifa area. Haifa itself has gone down a lot because it was much more of a high-tech hub before Tel Aviv and the center developed. And it really is a matter of leaders who take challenge. I have to say that we opened the center in Haifa as well, in addition to the one in Be'er Sheva, to be close to the Technion. As much as we work closely with Ben Gurion University this year, we're planning to award women in technology scholarships in Haifa.
Wow.
And I think that it's very important to have more than a single geography, and I can talk to you a lot about what I think about housing and the fact that even if the defense, or it's not even, when the defense units, technology units will move south, you can build affordable housing there, but we know it will be small apartments, relatively speaking. I think that the opportunities for quality living, for investment in transportation in the periphery is very important. I think that it is going to make a big difference for the Israeli economy, and I believe that the Haifa area needs to reinvent itself, and potentially, if technology units go south, it can very well invest in life sciences and others where the level of investment in the state is relatively low. And when I moved out of the venture capital industry, the biggest returns were on life sciences and medical equipment, because the amount of money there was always small. So it brought it back to companies building themselves reasonably efficiently, rather than splurgy as they do in many areas, like internet, for example, in the center. So it's not that I have an affinity only to the Negev, but I believe that there are some activities that need to create a full critical mass in one location, and there needs to be a strategy also for different type of critical mass creation up north.
All right. Orna, thank you so much. Such an inspiration.
Pleasure.
Thank you.